Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging headfirst into the mind of H.P. Lovecraft, the architect of cosmic horror, but from a really unique angle,
Oh, this sounds interesting.
right? Like, have you ever thought that his bone-chilling stories could be tied to a specific personality type?
Hmm. I can't say that I have.
So we're going to try and analyze Lovecraft through the lens of the Enneagram.
The Enneagram.
Yeah. Specifically, we're looking at him as a social five. And don't worry, we're drawing insights from an in-depth analysis, which is actually titled Enneagram Analysis of H.P. Lovecraft as a Social Five.
Well, now I'm intrigued. I mean, we often get lost in the monsters and the dread, but understanding like Lovecraft the person could really change how we see his work.
Exactly. Okay, so a quick primer on the Enneagram for anyone who's not familiar. A social five is someone driven by a just unquenchable thirst for knowledge. They're really drawn to the mysterious, the esoteric, and they often use knowledge as like a shield to protect themselves from feeling overwhelmed by the world.
Yeah, makes sense.
They can also be pretty detached, especially in personal relationships. They kind of prefer to observe rather than, jump into the mix. Does any of that sound familiar when you think of Lovecraft?
Absolutely. Even a quick look at Lovecraft's life shows some striking similarities. The man had an insatiable appetite for knowledge. I mean, he devoured astronomy, history, archaeology, even mythology. And it wasn't just, casual reading. He was a serious scholar, even if self-taught.
And this wasn't just a hobby, right? It wasn't just to pass the time. It feels like this deep need for knowledge. It was like fundamental to who he was as a person.
Yeah.
And you really see it reflected in his writing.
Oh, absolutely. Just look at the Mountains of Madness, for example. You have these incredibly detailed descriptions of ancient ruins, alien fossils, the way the narrator picks apart every single detail with like scientific precision. That to me mirrors the social five's need to analyze, categorize, impose order on chaos through knowledge.
Yeah. That's such a good point. I always saw those long descriptions as, part of his style, a way to create that sense of realism.
Yeah.
But now that you mention it, considering his personality, it seems like there's a deeper reason for it, like a psychological need almost.
And here's an interesting paradox, and it's right at the core of the social five. They seek knowledge to feel secure, right? To master their environment. But the more they learn, the more they realize how much they don't know. And it can create this feeling of insignificance.
Which fits perfectly with that constant cosmic dread that runs through Lovecraft's stories, right?
Yeah.
His characters are always driven to uncover hidden truth, but those discoveries often lead to, well, terror and despair.
Exactly. They come face to face with this chilling reality. Humanity is just a tiny speck in a vast, indifferent universe. It's pretty bleak and very much in line with the social five's tendency toward, well, nihilism, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. Okay, so we see these parallels with the social five and Lovecraft's intellectual pursuits. But what about the social and emotional side of things? Lovecraft wasn't exactly known for being a social butterfly, was he?
No, definitely not. He was notoriously reclusive and had, he had his fair share of struggles with personal relationships. Even his marriage was short-lived and, from what we know, emotionally distant. It aligns perfectly with that social five preference for detachment.
But wouldn't that make him just a recluse, not specifically a social five? What makes this subtype, different?
That's a sharp observation. It's not about being antisocial. The social five connects with others, but through shared intellectual interests. They observe social dynamics, but from a distance, often with a sense of detachment or irony.
So it's more about analyzing those interactions than fully participating in them. And we see that in his writing too, right? His characters, they're often these isolated scholars, more at ease with books and ideas than with actual people.
Exactly. Take the narrator in The Call of Cthulhu, for example. He's an academic who uncovers this, terrifying secret. But his response, he meticulously researches and documents everything instead of, seeking support or comfort from others. It's very typical of a social five, dealing with fear and uncertainty through intellectual analysis. Detachment.
It's like he's trying to build a wall of knowledge between himself and this terrifying reality he's stumbled upon. And it all circles back to that feeling of insignificance we talked about. It's like Lovecraft's characters and maybe even Lovecraft himself have trouble connecting with humanity because they're so, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the cosmos.
And this brings us to to a really fascinating concept. The Enneagram expert Claudio Naranjo describes this tension that the social five lives with, a fascination with the extraordinary, but also a deep-seated sense of meaninglessness.
Okay, break that down for me. How does this tension show up in Lovecraft's work?
Well, think about it. His characters are always searching for hidden knowledge, right? Drawn to the mysteries of the universe, even when those mysteries lead to uh, terrifying discoveries.
So there's this drive to elevate themselves to reach beyond the ordinary, but at the same time, they keep running into the cosmic indifference of the universe,
Hmm.
which reinforces that feeling of insignificance.
Exactly. And this creates a sort of existential crisis for the social five. It's this constant back and forth, this push and pull between pursuing the extraordinary and facing the crushing reality of their own, well, their own smallness in the grand scheme of things. And you see this reflected throughout Lovecraft's work.
Wow, that is insightful. I'm really starting to see how looking at Lovecraft as a social five adds so much depth to his writing. It's not just about, spooky monsters anymore. It's about the human condition, that search for meaning in a vast and often indifferent universe.
It really makes you think. And it's not just about cosmic horror either. It's about the internal struggles of this particular personality type. The fears and desires that drive them to seek knowledge and meaning, even if those pursuits lead them to, well, unsettling conclusions.
This is honestly giving me a whole new perspective on Lovecraft. It's like we're peeling back the layers and revealing the man behind the mythos, so to speak.
Exactly. And as we go deeper into the social five, I think we'll find even more connections between Lovecraft's personality and the choices he made as a writer. For instance, we could look at the concept of totemism, which is particularly relevant to understanding the symbols he uses.
Ooh, totemism. Now that sounds intriguing. Can't wait to dive into that.
So before we got sidetracked, we were talking about totemism and the social five.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really curious to unpack this a little more. What exactly is totemism and how does it relate to Lovecraft?
Well, Naranjo, the Enneagram expert we've been referencing, he suggests that social fives tend to they elevate certain abstract concepts or objects to like the status of a totem, giving them symbolic meaning and power.
So it's like they're finding something concrete, something tangible to represent, well, something that's ultimately intangible.
Exactly. It's a way to make the abstract, well, less abstract, to connect with something larger than themselves. And I think we see this really clearly in Lovecraft's work.
Okay, yeah, I think I see where you're going with this. Are you thinking about those monstrous entities like Cthulhu, Yog-Sothoth, and the whole gang? They're more than just like scary monsters, right?
Right. They become these totems of the unknowable, embodiments of those vast and indifferent forces that, well, that govern the universe. They represent the limits of human understanding, the terrifying reality that's just beyond our grasp.
And it's not just the entities themselves; it's the objects associated with them too, like like the Necronomicon, that forbidden book of ancient knowledge. It becomes a symbol of the allure, but also the danger of seeking that forbidden knowledge, right?
Absolutely. The Necronomicon is like the perfect example of a Lovecraftian totem. It embodies that social five desire to penetrate the mysteries of the universe, even if that knowledge leads to to madness and destruction.
It's like a big warning sign, Knowledge beyond this point may be hazardous to your sanity.
And there's another aspect of totemism we should touch on, the idea of the cult. Lovecraft's stories are full of cults that worship these ancient, uncaring entities.
Right, like those who worship Cthulhu, right? Chanting, "Funguim glum after Cthulhu aras runifilfunta." Okay, it still creeps me out. Now, how does that connect back to totemism?
Well, think of the cult as a kind of collective totemism, a whole group of people who have elevated this abstract entity to a position of, well, of worship. And there's a parallel here with the social five's own relationship with knowledge.
You mean that single-minded pursuit of understanding, even if it leads to isolation and detachment?
Precisely. It's a one-sided relationship where the object of worship, whether it's an ancient entity or a vast body of knowledge, remains, well, utterly indifferent to the devotee.
Wow, that's a really thought-provoking way to look at it. It adds a whole new layer of meaning to those creepy cults in Lovecraft's stories.
It also highlights the inherent dangers of that social five approach to the world. That pursuit of knowledge can become so all-consuming that it isolates them from from others and blinds them to the potential consequences of their actions.
It's a reminder that that knowledge, even with all its benefits, can also be a dangerous thing, especially when it's pursued at the expense of human connection and empathy.
Right. But we shouldn't get too caught up in the negative side of the social five. Remember, there are also some positive aspects to this personality type.
Oh, right. We were talking earlier about how social fives are incredibly insightful and perceptive.
Exactly. And these qualities, they're reflected in Lovecraft's writing too. Think about his ability to observe those subtle details, to capture the atmosphere, the mood of a place with such precision.
You're right. His descriptions, even when he's describing something as ordinary as like the architecture of a New England town, they're incredibly vivid and evocative. He really had a knack for creating a strong sense of place.
And that comes from his social five ability to observe and analyze, to see the world through this unique and, well, often unsettling lens. He's not just describing what he sees, he's dissecting it,
Right.
revealing the hidden layers of meaning and significance.
So in a way, his detachment actually enhances his observational skills. It allows him to see things that others might miss.
Mhm.
Those cracks in reality, the subtle hints that something something sinister is lurking beneath the surface.
Precisely. And it's that combination, the insightful observation and the chilling detachment, that gives his work that unique, unforgettable quality.
It's like he's a master of seeing the extraordinary within the ordinary,
Mhm.
finding that cosmic horror hiding in plain sight. It's funny. I'm starting to see how these seemingly negative traits of the social five can actually be quite powerful,
Mhm.
creative, even when they're channeled in the right way.
It's a good reminder that every personality type, even those that lean towards isolation and detachment, they have their strengths. It's all about how those traits are expressed and integrated into a person's life.
Okay, so we've looked at the darker side of the social five and also highlighted some of their strengths. But I'm still grappling with this question: does seeing Lovecraft as a social five actually enhance our understanding of his work, or does it limit it somehow?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It definitely adds a new layer of depth and complexity to how we interpret his work. It helps us see the connections between his personal struggles, those fears and desires, and the worlds he created.
But are we reducing his genius by attributing everything to his personality type? I mean, isn't that a bit too simplistic?
That's a valid point. We have to remember that art is always more than just the sum of its parts, right? Lovecraft was a master storyteller, a weaver of words who created a universe that, well, it continues to fascinate and terrify readers all these years later.
So we should be careful not to oversimplify his work. But at the same time, understanding his personality can be a valuable tool, a way to unlock that deeper meaning and symbolism in his stories.
It's all about finding a balance, appreciating the artistry, but also acknowledging the influence of the artist's personality and experiences.
It's like we're adding a new lens to our Lovecraftian telescope, so to speak, letting us see his work with greater clarity and depth.
And with that enhanced vision, we can dive even deeper into the themes and symbolism that make Lovecraft such a compelling and enduring figure in literature. For example, we could look at his use of scientific language and structure, even in stories that are, well, inherently supernatural.
That's always fascinated me about Lovecraft. Even when he's describing the most outlandish creatures and events, he does it with this scientific detachment, and that somehow makes it all the more unsettling.
Exactly. And that ties back to the social fives, their analytical mindset, their need to categorize and understand even the most chaotic and frightening aspects of existence.
It's like he's trying to impose order on the universe, even when that universe is filled with, tentacled monsters and ancient unspeakable evils.
And a lot of times his narrators are academics, scientists, researchers, people who are trained to observe, analyze, and document. They represent that social five approach to the world, that attempt to understand the unknowable through reason and
But
observation.
of course, in Lovecraft's world, reason and observation often lead to madness and despair. The more his characters learn, the more they realize how futile their efforts are to truly comprehend the nature of of reality.
It's a sobering reminder that sometimes the pursuit of knowledge leads to, well, to more questions than answers, and that real wisdom might actually lie in accepting the limits of human understanding.
Which ironically is a very social five concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
Recognizing the vastness of what we don't know and embracing the mystery.
Precisely. It's this paradox at the heart of this personality type, and it's reflected in Lovecraft's work in a way that's both unsettling and strangely profound.
This has been a really illuminating discussion. I feel like I'm seeing Lovecraft's work in a whole new light now.
Right. And we're not finished yet. There's still so much more to uncover. We still need to delve into Lovecraft's legacy and explore how his unique vision continues to influence writers, artists, filmmakers, even today.
So we've really gone deep on Lovecraft as a social five, and I got to say, it's definitely changed how I see his work. But before we wrap things up, I'm kind of curious about the bigger picture. Like Lovecraft's legacy. How has his work resonated over the years? And do you think this whole social five thing helps explain like his lasting influence?
It's a great question. I mean, Lovecraft's influence on, well, on horror, science fiction, even fantasy, it's huge. He's like this like shadowy godfather of cosmic horror,
Yeah.
lurking in the background of so many stories and movies and stuff.
I see what you mean.
Hmm.
You can spot his influence everywhere, from movies like The Thing to video games like Bloodborne. Even authors like Stephen King have said that Lovecraft was a major inspiration for them. What is it about his work, do you think, that keeps resonating with creators and audiences even now?
Well, there are several factors at play. First, his vision was just so original for its time. He wasn't afraid to go to those really dark places, to confront that cosmic indifference, that sense that humanity is just utterly insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it's like he tapped into this primal fear of the unknown, the vastness of space and time, those forces that are just beyond our grasp. It's unsettling for sure, but it's also kind of captivating at the same time.
Exactly. And he did it with such evocative language. His writing, even though it can be dense and a bit archaic, it draws you in.
Hmm.
He really had a way with creating atmosphere and mood.
But it's more than just scary stories, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't Lovecraft's work like speak to something deeper about being human?
Absolutely. I think that's a big part of why he's still relevant today. He tackles these big themes: knowledge, isolation, the search for meaning in a chaotic and indifferent universe. Those themes resonate with a lot of people, especially now.
Yeah, especially now. I mean, with all the information overload
Mm.
and all the existential anxieties we face today, Lovecraft almost feels prophetic in a way.
It's interesting you say that. A lot of his characters are driven to madness by the knowledge they uncover. It's like the weight of it all, the sheer volume of what they learn, just becomes too much to
Yeah,
handle.
like a cautionary tale about unchecked curiosity. So
Okay.
seeking knowledge without thinking about the potential consequences.
Exactly. It reminds us that knowledge is it can be a double-edged sword. It can illuminate, but it can also unsettle and even terrify.
And maybe that's where the whole social five thing really comes into play. It helps us understand Lovecraft's own anxieties about knowledge, that struggle to reconcile the desire to understand with the sheer immensity of the unknown.
That's a great point, and I think that's a struggle that a lot of people can relate to, even if they don't, read Lovecraft or even like horror. I mean, we all wrestle with questions of meaning and purpose, especially in a world that often feels chaotic and indifferent.
So Lovecraft, through this social five lens, he kind of gives us a way to understand not just his own fears and obsessions, but also our own anxieties about the world and where we fit in.
Yeah, he gives us a language to confront that cosmic horror that's always lurking. That terrifying realization that we're just tiny, insignificant beings in this vast and uncaring universe.
It's a pretty bleak picture for sure, but there's also something liberating about acknowledging that truth, embracing the absurdity of it all, maybe.
And that might be the ultimate takeaway from Lovecraft's work and from seeing him as a social five. It's not about giving in to despair, but about finding a way to live with that knowledge. To find those moments of joy and wonder, even when faced with cosmic indifference.
It's like even in the deepest, darkest corners of Lovecraft's cosmic horror, there's this glimmer of hope this spark of defiance that refuses to be extinguished. And maybe that's why his work still speaks to us, even as we stare into the abyss of the unknown.
So to everyone listening out there, if you're drawn to Lovecraft stories, don't be afraid of the darkness. Embrace the mystery, confront the fear, and remember, even in a vast and uncaring universe, the human spirit it endures.
That's beautifully put. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into H.P. Lovecraft and the Social Five. We hope you gained some new insights into his work and maybe even into yourselves.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, sometimes the most terrifying discoveries are the ones that lead us to the most profound truths.